Good afternoon again. This is Bill. I'm here at Kaiser Farms. Got my good buddy Steve. Gonna run a little video. We're gonna show you one of my favorite tricks or techniques that we use a lot on the farm. If you have garden hoses, air hoses, any kind of hoses, you know what it's like to have a leak on a hose and have to repair a hose end. You put this and you put that down in it, and then you screw one of those confounded little old clamps on it, and you stick your finger with the screwdriver. The thing leaks. When you're dragging it, it drags on the ground. Well, we're going to eliminate all of that right here. This is an airline. This is the fit that goes on the airline. This is a piece of heat shrink tubing. We're going to start off, we're going to slide this heat shrink tubing on there and just going to forget about it a minute. This is 17-pound monofilament fishing line. And it doesn't have to be 17 pounds. It needs to be between 15 and 20 pounds. Just the cheapest monofilament fishing line you can find. The reason for that is you want it to have a little bit of stretch in it, because when we put it together, we want it to stretch a little bit every turn, but we want it to be strong enough not to break. So you got your fitting put together, got your 17-pound test line, and you start wrapping. It's pretty simple. I'm going to take about 25 wraps on this fitting, and I'm pulling it tight enough to stretch the cord a little bit every time. And a little bit of stretch on 25 different wraps is going to make it tight enough that you do not have to worry about it coming loose. Yeah, maybe it takes a little bit longer than screwing a clamp on. Maybe it doesn't take quite as long, but I've got one roll of 17-pound monofilament line that will stay here on the farm, and a roll of tape, and I don't have to worry about different sizes, what size clamp to have, or anything else. We get it wrapped up there with 25 wraps, maybe 30 wraps. Put a little tape on it, and we cut the monofilament off. Now, if you want to, you can wrap it with tape and forget the heat shrink tubing. Don't need the heat shrink tubing. It's there simply to show off and dress it up a little bit. That's what it'll look like when you're finished. If you're going to use tape, you need to put another dozen or so wraps around it. Because we're using heat shrink, we just put enough tape on it to hold the string in place while we shrink the tubing on it. We put the tubing, got a little heat gun. You can use an oxygen acetylene torch, you can use a propane torch. I like the heat gun because I get a little carried away sometimes, and using a torch on this heat shrink tubing, you can burn it, you can warp it, you can do some funny things. This heat gun is a lot more forgiving. You can use your wife's hair dryer, but my wife is a lot less forgiving than the blower here that I have, or the oxygen acetylene, or the propane torch. You can see we're beginning to shrink it down. And we're just about finished. Again, I remind you, you can use 15 to 20 pound line. If you're getting much less than 15-pound line, you tend to break it. If you're getting much more than 20-pound line, you don't stretch it. And the stretch is the key to the whole thing. The line has to stretch a little bit every time you go around. Now, we're finished with that. Doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too good. Doesn't look bad at all, though. If you think that won't hold, you're wrong. It will hold. We use them. We got them all over the shop. We're going to show you one in a minute where it's on another line, but they're hooked up to 150 pounds of air pressure, and yeah, you can blow the hose out, you can bust the hose, but if you wrap that properly, it's going to stay there. While we're sitting here talking about fixing hoses, that was an air line. This, of course, is your garden hose. And if you fool with a garden hose much, you're going to have leaks. If you want to, you can throw it away and buy a new one. I just fix it. Right now, it's a little bit cold. You can see the garden hose is a little bit stiff. So we're going to heat the hose up a little bit. And this actually does two things. First, it makes it a whole lot easier to push that in. Secondly, when you get it heated and the hose is much more pliable, when you wrap it, I don't care if you're using a clamp, a stainless steel clamp with a screw on it, or whether you're using a fishing line like I use, if you get it where the hose is pliable, it'll pull down on the fittings a whole lot better. It'll be much, much less likely to leak or to give you trouble later. Now you can see now, we got that hose pretty pliable. That'll just slide right in there, slide out, no problem. We're gonna wrap it the same way. Give it about 25 good wraps, good tight wraps. Tape it up, and we'll have a new end. Unfortunately, I did not have a piece of heat shrink tubing the right size for this hose, so we're just going to do it with tape. Tape works just as well, may not be as pretty. After a few years, the tape may start to unwrap or come off a little bit, but after a few years, shucks, the hose is going to be busted again somewhere else, and you're going to need to redo it anyway. But here we go with a hose in, a hose connection. If you got the tape and the fishing line, you don't have to worry about having the right size or anything else. You just put it on there, you tape it up, and it will hold. You don't have to worry about it dragging and snagging on the ground, catching you, making you mad, anything else. There you go. It will hold. In fact, I have put it on 2-inch hoses where I could not get the stainless steel clamps to hold, and I wrapped it with this and hadn't had any problem with it. I was putting 2-inch stainless steel clamps on it, and it was blowing off, but the fishing line held it. That's all. We're going to walk over now and just going to look at a couple of splices that I made showing you kind of what they can look like. And as I say, these are on air lines. They're running 150 pounds pressure, and they don't blow off. We have a lot of problems on the farm, but with those hoses coming loose is not one of them. Okay, we said we were going to come back and see some that I had done previously. I don't know, these are 5, 6, 7 years ago we did this. We burned the hose, we wrapped it, we put a fitting in it, we wrapped it and got tape on it, and that tape's been there, I don't know, 5 years. Got 150 pounds pressure on it. Here's another one that we taped up. And on the end, I'd gotten a little bit better, found some heat shrink tubing, and we just wrapped it, put a little bit of tape on it, and put some heat shrink tubing on it. It makes a nice fitting, nice end of the fitting. Here in the shop, we dropping things on it, we're running over it, we dropping sparks and welding splatter and stuff on the hose, so we're all the time knocking a hole in it, but putting it back together, not a problem. Okay, friends, we had a question about putting the ends on a garden hose or any other hose, and some people were asking about, well, supposing it's not broken on the end, supposing it's broken in the middle. So we decided to add a little segment in this showing that it's not a big deal to do it in the middle or the end. In fact, we're going to make a loop with the section right in here being the repaired section, and let you see just how easy it is to go around the middle of a hose as opposed to the end. The first thing we're going to do though is we're going to realize this is approximately a 1-inch hose, and to go around it 25 times over here and 25 times over there is going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 12 foot of line. So we're going to cut 10 or 12 foot of line. That's 5, that's 10, that's 15. That ought to be close to 10 or 12 feet. Thank goodness fishing line is cheap. We're going to make the fishing line a little bit easier to handle because we're going to go through the circle, through the middle of the circle. So we're going to wrap it on I have a pencil, a little short wooden dowel, a nail, a screw, or anything else you want to use, but just something to keep it from getting tangled up, make it easier to wrap. All right, we've got 12, 15 feet of fishing line wrapped on the dowel. We've got our hose that we're going to join. Actually going to make a loop. Then we're going to show how to wrap it with the string and eventually the tape. It's a little bit, maybe, a little bit more challenging to do it in the middle than it is, and to keep it tight than it would be to do it on the end. But you simply wrap and wrap, and if you'll notice, I'm taking the fingers on my left hand, putting them on the string to keep it from coming loose while I'm swapping my hand over on the dowel. Now that I've gotten it started, it's a whole lot easier because I don't have to hold the string. And here we go. Round and round. We're going to get about 25 wraps on either side. And like I said, it doesn't matter whether the hose makes a circle like this, or whether it goes on both sides, whether okay, we've got just about 25 wraps on each side of the joint. So we're going to bring our string over, put our tape on, trim our string, and finish wrapping with tape. If I had a piece of heat shrink, which I normally try to keep around, we could use it, but the tape will work just as well. And there you have a hose fixed in the middle, just as good as new. Thank you, Steve. What we've been doing now is repairing hoses and air lines with monofilament nylon. I am not sure what would happen to the monofilament if it gets really hot, so I do not recommend you use this on radiators or hot water lines, say for instance to your washing machine or something, because I'm not sure whether the nylon might or might not stretch. But on cold water it'll do fine. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you'll know when we have a new one out. Thank you.